My name is Adam. I'm 36 and 3 weeks ago I learned how fast a life can split in two before a sentence and after it. Clara called it an intimate birthday. That was the pitch. Just a few friends, a little music, something tasteful. By noon I realized intimate meant a curated guest list of influencers, co-workers, and people whose job titles looked good on invitations. I spent the day hauling folding tables, hanging lights, taste-testing canapes I couldn't pronounce, and making 2 last-minute trips for the exact brand of sparkling water she said photographed better. It was my apartment on paper, at least. I signed the lease, paid the rent, and fixed the faucet when it screamed. Clara moved in with a suitcase and a vision board. She worked in marketing and thought in slogans. I worked in HVAC and thought in measurements, amperage, static pressure, superheat. She teased that I spoke machine better than people. I let it slide because I thought she meant it kindly. Now I know it was a rehearsal for the main event. At 7:00 p.m., the first guests arrived and the place transformed. Someone dimmed the bulbs I'd spent an hour balancing. The playlist shifted from our usual to a glossy loop that sounded like perfume ads. The coffee table became a stage for Clara's new brand of lipstick arranged like trophies labels forward. I stood in the kitchen refilling ice and reminding myself this was love you carry what the other person cares about, even when it's heavy. By 9, the apartment felt smaller. A surgeon's girlfriend laughed about a ski trip in Austria. A restaurant owner's wife said she loved our neighborhood. It's so authentic, which is what people say right before the rent doubles. Clara floated through it all like a host on a red carpet, cheeks bright voice, smooth hand, landing on elbows and shoulders with practiced ease. Every time she passed me, she smiled for the room and whispered a new request, move the dessert, fix the AUX, switch the glassware. I didn't mind. I was good at tasks. Tasks end. At 10, Megan, the surgeon's girlfriend, asked about summer plans. She had the kind of attention everyone bends toward. "Where are you two going?" she sang like the question itself was a ticket. Clara laughed too quickly. "We're not going anywhere. Adam can't afford it." The joke hung there. A few chuckled because that's what you do when you don't know where the line is. I felt the little drop inside the one that means you've stepped from solid ground onto ice. I walked out of the kitchen with a bag of ice balanced on my arm. I suggested camping, I said, trying to keep it easy. State park, fire ring, stars. Clara's smile stiffened. Camping. That's not a vacation. That's chores outdoors. The people closest to her smiled with her. The people closest to me looked at their shoes. I felt the air change as if someone had cracked a window in winter. "It's what we can afford," I said quietly, "if you want to keep the BMW lease." She turned toward me, then full-stage wine glass tilted just enough to catch light. "Oh, here we go. The accountant of feelings. Adam, do you hear yourself? You fix air conditioners. That's fine, truly, salt of the earth. But it's not a life plan." She spread her fingers like a magician. 4 years and you're still content. You don't aim higher. You don't try. 30 faces turned. I could hear the soft click of someone recording. She kept going like she'd been saving breath. My friends ask what you do, and I have to watch their eyebrows politely lift. Megan's partner performs surgeries. Kelly's husband runs 3 restaurants. And I date a guy who changes filters. Something in me loosened like a rusted bolt finally giving way. Not my heart. That would have meant I still believed she was careful with it. No, it was a chain I hadn't noticed until it fell. I set the ice on the counter. "You're absolutely right," I said. The room did a strange collective pause as if everyone missed a step on a staircase. Clara blinked. "What?" "You're right. I am a loser to you." I took my wallet and keys from the tray by the door. I didn't hurry. I was suddenly aware of tiny things, the lemon oil on the cutting board, the faint rattle in the hallway vent, the way the light made the glassware look like it belonged in someone else's home. "Adam, don't be dramatic," she said, voice sliding into a register meant for crowds. "We're joking." "No," I said. "You're presenting." Laughter died mid-breath across the room. Somewhere a phone stopped recording because the person holding it forgot their hands. I opened the door. "Enjoy your party." Adam. My name came out as a command she thought I'd obey. I'd obeyed 1,000 small ones move that buy this smile there. This time I stepped into the hallway. The latch clicked behind me clean as a period. The elevator hummed up from the lobby as I stood and let my heart catch up to my feet. I stared at the red LED number. I could feel the weight of 30 looks on the other side of the door, and one look heavier than the rest. I waited for anger, but what arrived was air-cold simple air I could fill my lungs with. I walked 3 blocks to my truck, the older one we kept, because it was paid off, the one Clara called a good story for your brand, hard-working guy, reliable vehicle. I sat in the driver's seat and kept my hands on the wheel until they stopped shaking. My phone lit up with texts. Where did you go? Come back. You're making a scene. Then are you serious? Then answer me. The last 1-2 words. Please, Adam. I drove to Trevor's, my oldest friend. He lived in a building that smelled like laundry and new paint and had a top-floor window that faced the city's scarred skyline. He opened the door in gym shorts and socks, took one look at me, and said nothing, except couch is clear. He set a beer on the coffee table and turned on a game I didn't have to follow. We existed like that for an hour, 2 men who learned long ago that silence can be the most generous thing you give. When I finally spoke, I told him the words. Not the decorations or the brands or the guest list, just the sentence. He nodded once like a foreman approving a plan. So he said, what now? Sleep, I said. And tomorrow? I don't know. At 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed again. I flipped it face up. 62 missed calls. The messages had changed shape: apology, then explanation, then blame, then apology again. The tone I knew best, polished, persuasive, bled through the screen. I typed one reply and stared at it long enough to mean it. You're right. I was a loser. I'm fixing that. I didn't send it. Not yet. I watched the cursor blink a tiny metronome, counting out a life I could keep living or leave. I thought about the business license I never filed, the logo I doodled, and hid the clients who'd asked quietly if I did side jobs. I thought about the way my body had learned to brace when Clara inhaled before a sentence. I thought about the chain on the floor. I hit send. Then I powered the phone down, set it face down on the table, and lay back on the couch. The room smelled like detergent and old wood. Somewhere below us, a dog barked once and settled. I closed my eyes and for the first time in a long time slept without waking to an alarm I couldn't see. Morning arrived, ordinary gray light, the hum of pipes, the city shaking off its dreams. I made coffee, too strong, and burned the toast. Trevor grinned and ate it anyway. When he left for work, I stayed at his small kitchen table and opened my laptop. The cursor blinked again, but now it felt like a green light. I typed my name, then a company name I'd once only said in the shower. I filled the fields for an LLC, double-checked the address, and hovered over the final button. My thumb pressed the trackpad like it might bite. From the hallway, a drill whined. Someone downstairs was putting something new on a wall. A reminder that everything we live inside was built by a person who decided to start. I took a breath. And that's when the knock sounded at the door, sharp, fast, insistent. Trevor wasn't due back for hours. The knocks came again. I stood up, heart thudding, and went to open it. The knocking didn't stop. Sharp, impatient, the kind of rhythm that said the person on the other side believed they still had control over you. I opened the door. Clara stood there, mascara, slightly smudged hair pulled back like she'd rushed over. Behind her, the morning light spilled down the hallway, turning everything too bright. Adam, please, she said. We need to talk. I didn't invite her in. About what? Last night. You just walked out. Everyone's asking questions. You embarrassed me in front of my friends. I leaned on the door frame. Clara, you called me a worthless loser in front of 30 people. She exhaled like that detail was trivial. I had too much wine. I didn't mean it like that. You know how I get when I'm stressed. No, I said. I know how you get when you think no one will hold you accountable. Her eyes flickered. You're being dramatic. I almost laughed. The same phrase she used at the party. The same tone. It used to shut me down. Now it sounded like a broken record. I'm not coming back, I said. Her jaw dropped. You're throwing away 4 years. No, I'm walking away from 4 years of you being ashamed of me. She blinked rapidly, trying to summon tears. You can't just leave. My stuff is there. Your stuff will be packed by Friday. You can pick it up over the weekend. You can't kick me out, she snapped. I have rights. Not legally. Your name's not on the lease. You were a guest. Her face turned red. You can't be serious. I already checked. I'm serious. For a long moment, she just stared, her expression stuck between disbelief and fury. Then she spun around and marched off, heels clattering down the hallway. When she was gone, I closed the door and just stood there, my heart pounding, not from fear, but from relief. The next few days were quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like oxygen returning to your lungs after being underwater too long. I spent most of it at Trevor's place, sitting at his tiny kitchen table, filling out business license forms, and watching the future take shape line by line. By Wednesday, I'd filed for my own HVAC company A&B Climate Control. The A wasn't for Clara. It stood for after. I designed a logo, bought a domain, called a few old clients who used to ask if I did side work. Now I do, I told them. 2 said they'd call next week. Friday morning, Clara texted again. We need to talk. Please. I ignored it. At noon, she called from a blocked number. Trevor answered by mistake. She launched into a speech about how she'd made a huge mistake, how she'd been under pressure, how she just wanted to feel proud of us again. When he handed me the phone, I said, Clara, I'm busy. You can't mean that. I do. Adam, I was just showing off. You know how those people are. Yeah, I said. I do now. She tried a different tone, soft pleading. You were the best thing in my life. I didn't respond. You're going to regret this, she snapped suddenly. You can't just erase me. I'm not erasing you, I said calmly. You're packing yourself into boxes by Friday. I hung up. Saturday afternoon, she showed up at the apartment with reinforcements, her mother, her sister, and 3 friends, including Megan, the surgeon's girlfriend. Her mother, Diane, started in first. Adam, this is ridiculous. Couples fight. You don't end a relationship over one argument. It wasn't an argument, I said. It was her showing me who she really is. Her sister folded her arms. She was drunk. People say things they don't mean. I looked her in the eye. Drunk words are sober thoughts. Megan, standing by the door, muttered, You're being immature. She deserves better. I smiled faintly. You're right, she does. That's why I'm giving her the chance to find it. They carried boxes while Clara supervised, calling out, That's my coffee maker, I handed it to her. Sure. That's my TV, I showed her the receipt with my name on it. Halfway through, she muttered something under her breath about me being petty. I ignored it. Then, as they were about to leave, she said it. I'm pregnant. Everyone froze. Her mother's face went pale. I took a slow breath. No, you're not. She lifted her chin. How would you know? Because you had your period last week, I said. Unless you're claiming immaculate conception. A stunned silence followed. Her friends exchanged glances. She looked ready to sink through the floor. Also, I added you might want to check your math. You were in Miami 3 weeks ago at that conference. I know who you shared a room with. Her face went white. Diane turned to her daughter. Is that true? Clara didn't answer. She just stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Monday morning, my boss called. Adam, I got a strange email. Someone's accusing you of stealing equipment and selling it on the side. I froze. That's not true. I know, he said. I checked inventory. Everything's accounted for. Just wanted to warn you someone's trying to make trouble. I didn't need to guess who. 2 days later, Clara went public on social media. Her post read, After 4 years, he abandoned me without a word. No explanation, no compassion. Ladies, this is what happens when you date down. They resent your success. Half the comments supported her. The other half smelled the lie. But then something unexpected happened. Someone uploaded a video. The clip showed Clara at the party drunk and vicious, calling me a worthless loser while I stood silent. Then it showed me saying, You're right. I'm done being your loser and walking out. The internet turned instantly. Her narrative collapsed. Even her friends commented, We saw it happen, Clara. That's not what you said that night. Her company saw the video, too. By Friday, she was fired for unprofessional conduct. She showed up at my work, eyes red. You got me fired. No, I said. You got yourself fired. You ruined my life. I stared at her. You did that at your own birthday party. She started to cry real tears this time. Adam, I'm sorry. I lost everything. My job, My apartment? My car? I remembered her words, worthless loser, and said quietly, "Then maybe it's time you find out what work really feels like." She looked stunned. "You're cruel." "No," I said. "I'm just done being yours." That night, Trevor asked if I felt bad. "Not anymore," I said. "I'm finally building something that's mine." My business was small, just me, a truck, and a logo, but it was growing. For the first time, my effort turned into progress instead of apologies. As for Clara, she moved back with her mother. Her old BMW got repossessed. Her social media was full of motivational posts about knowing your worth. Every time I saw one, I couldn't help but think she finally learned what mine was. It's strange how silence can feel louder than words. After the chaos of those first weeks, the quiet that followed was almost unnerving. No shouting, no guilt trips, no tightness in my chest every time my phone buzzed. Just quiet. But peace never lasts long when the past refuses to let go. One morning, about 2 weeks after the party, I got a call from my boss. "Hey, Adam," he began carefully. "You haven't done anything stupid lately, have you?" My stomach dropped. "Not that I know of." "Why?" "I just got an anonymous email accusing you of stealing HVAC parts and selling them online." I closed my eyes. Let me guess detailed language, a concerned friend of the company tone. He chuckled softly. "You know it. Don't worry, I checked the inventory myself. Everything's fine. But someone's trying to mess with you." I thanked him and hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from anger. Even after being exposed, she was still trying to poison what I had left. Later that night, I checked social media out of morbid curiosity. There she was. Clara had turned our breakup into her personal redemption arc. "After 4 years, he left me out of nowhere," her post read. "No conversation, no closure, just abandoned me. Sometimes people you trust the most are the ones who destroy you." The comments were a battlefield. Some offered sympathy, others saw right through it. And then came the blowback. Someone had uploaded a video from her birthday. The footage was clear, Clara wine glass in hand, mocking my job while 30 people looked on, and me standing quietly saying, "You're right," before walking out. It spread like wildfire. Within hours, her post was flooded with replies. "We saw what really happened. You humiliated him, not the other way around. This isn't empowerment, it's cruelty." By the next day, her Instagram was private, but the internet doesn't forget. Screenshots, mirrors, clips, they all multiplied. Clara's perfect image cracked under the weight of her own words. The following Monday, my phone rang again, this time an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Grant, this is HR from Sterling Cosmetics," her company. "They said they were conducting a review regarding a viral video involving one of their employees. We'd appreciate your cooperation if you could confirm what occurred at that event." I kept my voice steady. "It happened at my apartment. I paid for everything. She insulted me in front of her colleagues. I left quietly. They thanked me for my honesty, and that was it." By Wednesday, Clara was out of a job. She showed up at my work the next day, eyes red, voice trembling between rage and panic. "You got me fired," she said. I shook my head. "No, Clara, you did that yourself." "You sent them the video." "I didn't have to. The whole internet saw it." Her voice cracked. "Adam, I'm sorry. I lost everything. My job, my car, my apartment. Please, can we talk?" I looked at her for a long moment. Part of me wanted to believe her, to believe she'd finally seen the damage she'd done. But then I remembered the look on her face that night when she called me worthless. "I think you've said enough, Clara," I said quietly. "Go home." Where she whispered, "I don't have one anymore." I walked past her without answering. That weekend, she tried one last move, legal intimidation. A letter arrived claiming emotional distress and demanding $15,000 for unlawful eviction. My lawyer friend laughed so hard he nearly dropped his beer. "She lived in your place, rent-free, never signed anything, and called you names in front of witnesses," he said. "She's got less of a case than a snowball in July." He sent a single-page response. "My client declines your demands. Further contact should be made through counsel. P.S. We have video evidence of your client's verbal abuse." We never heard from her attorney again. I poured everything I had into my new business. Early mornings, long drives, and cheap coffee from gas stations became my new rhythm, and it felt good, real solid earned. Within 3 weeks, I had my first steady client, a bakery on the west side. The owner, an older woman named Patty, hugged me after I fixed her AC. "You're a lifesaver," she said. No, I replied, smiling, just a repair guy. She laughed. That's the same thing around here. Word spread fast. By the end of the month, I had half a dozen clients and more calls coming in. Then came the message that surprised me most. It was from Megan Yes, the surgeon's girlfriend, one of the women who'd laughed that night. Hey, Adam. You probably hate me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. After you left the party, Clara spent hours tearing you apart. She said you were lazy, controlling, and jealous. But the more she talked, the clearer it became that you were the one paying for everything. She told us she spent her paycheck on clothes and trips while you handled the bills. I read it twice, then replied simply, "Thanks for letting me know." She wrote back again, "Also, my boyfriend's clinic needs a new HVAC system. Are you taking contracts? That one job covered 3 months of expenses." By then, Clara had gone completely quiet. Her social media vanished, her friends stopped mentioning her, and she'd become a ghost in her own story. But ghosts don't always stay gone. A few nights later, I got a text from an unknown number. "You think this makes you better? You ruined me." I didn't reply. Another came an hour later. "I loved you. You'll regret this." I turned my phone off and went back to writing invoices. When Trevor stopped by that weekend, he found me sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by paperwork and blueprints. He picked up one of my new business cards. A&B Climate Control. "That's official. It's real," I said. "Feels strange saying that." He smirked. "She used to say you lacked ambition, huh?" "Yeah." He leaned back. Guess she was wrong. That night I thought about everything: the party, the humiliation, the lies. But what stuck with me wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. Clara had built her life like a brand, glossy, impressive hollow. I'd built mine with tools, sweat, and quiet persistence. She needed applause to feel worthy. I just needed peace. When I finally went to bed, I realized something: I hadn't checked my phone once that evening. No texts, no anxiety, no waiting for the next storm. Just sleep. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like I was winning. It's been a month since the night she screamed that I was a worthless loser. A lot can happen in a month when you finally stop standing still. My small business was starting to feel like something real. A&B Climate Control, just me, a pickup, and a battered toolbox. Yet somehow it was working. Every week a few more calls, every week a little less of the past hanging on my shoulders. I spent my mornings driving between jobs, my afternoons doing paperwork, and my evenings fixing the things I used to ignore: bills, licenses, taxes, even the squeaky hinge on Trevor's door. It felt like rebuilding one screw at a time. Then one morning my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Is this Adam Grant?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is James. We met, well, not officially. I work at the same company Clara used to. We were at that Miami conference together." I sat up straighter. "Go on." He cleared his throat. "Look, nothing happened in Miami. I just want to make that clear. She tried. She told me you two were basically over, that you were controlling and financially abusive. But then I looked you up online, saw the videos, the story, everything. I realized she was just projecting." I didn't speak for a moment. He continued. "She's been calling my office, trying to get me fired, claims I harassed her. My boss knows it's garbage, but I figured you should know what kind of storm she's stirring." "Thanks," I said finally, "but I already know." Before hanging up, he added, "For what it's worth, man, you handled that night better than most people would have." I hung up staring at my reflection in the window. It felt surreal. People I'd never met were confirming what I'd always known, but hadn't dared to believe that she wasn't just cruel in a moment of anger. It was who she was when she lost control of the narrative. That same week, a new text came in. This one from a familiar number, her sister Ashley. "Hey, Adam. Don't block me, please. Clara's been a mess. Mom's kicking her out. She's broke. She asked me to reach out. She says she'll sign whatever you want, apologize, even make a public statement. Just please don't let her end up homeless." I read it twice. Then I put the phone down and went back to my invoices. An hour later, another text, this time directly from Clara, sent from Ashley's phone. "Adam, you hate me. I know, but I've lost everything. Please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize, I'll tell everyone the truth, I'll go to therapy. I just need a place to stay until I get back on my feet." I stared at the message for a long time. My first instinct was silence. But then something inside me shifted, maybe closure, maybe just exhaustion. I typed, "There's a McDonald's hiring near Maple Avenue. They don't care about job titles." Her reply came fast. "You're cruel," I answered once more. "No, I'm just not your loser anymore. Good luck, Clara." Then I blocked the number. The next morning I woke up earlier than usual. The air felt different, crisp light. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and checked my business email. 3 new clients had reached out overnight, including one from a local medical facility, Megan's boyfriend's referral. When I arrived at the clinic, Megan was there. She greeted me with an awkward smile. "Hey, Adam. I just wanted to say thank you for not hating me. I know we laughed that night. I'm not proud of it." I shrugged. People laugh when they're uncomfortable. She nodded. "Still, I should have stopped her. I didn't realize what she was doing to you until it was too late." "You did now," I said simply. "We didn't talk much after that. Just work." By the time I was done, she handed me a check 3 months' rent worth. "For the job," she said. I looked at it then, back at her. "You sure about this?" "Completely. The world needs more men like you, Adam." I laughed softly. "Trust me, one is enough." That night, Trevor and I grabbed dinner at a small pub downtown. It felt good to sit somewhere without checking my phone every 5 minutes. "You know," Trevor said between bites, "it's kind of poetic. She built her life on image and you built yours on actual work. Guess which one lasted?" I smiled. "Yeah. But you know what the best part is?" "What?" I stopped trying to prove her wrong. I just started proving myself right. He raised his glass. To that. We clinked glasses. A few days later, my phone buzzed again, an unknown number, but local. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. "Adam, it's Diane," the voice said. "Clara's mother." I braced myself. "Hi, I wanted to apologize," she said softly. I didn't see what was happening. "Clara finally told me everything, the lies, the party Miami, all of it. You didn't deserve any of that. I thought I raised her better." "It is what it is," I said quietly. "She's staying with a friend now, working part-time at the mall, still posting things online, pretending she's fine. But I wanted you to know, her father and I see you differently now. You're a good man, Adam. You always were." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I just said, "Thank you, Diane." After she hung up, I sat there for a while just thinking. Her mother's words didn't change anything, but they closed a door I hadn't realized was still open. 2 weeks later, I ran into Kelly and her husband at a restaurant. They waved me over. "Adam, come join us," Kelly said. "We heard your business is doing great." I sat with them for a bit. Kelly's husband grinned. "Starting over like that respect man. Not many would have had the guts." Kelly nodded. We all knew Clara could be demanding, but we didn't know she was that cruel. "You handled it better than anyone could have." I smiled. "I just did what she told me to do." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" I stopped being her loser. They laughed, and so did I. For once, the laughter wasn't sharp. It was clean, light, real. That night, driving home, I passed a gas station. My tank was half full, but something made me pull in anyway. As I got out to pump gas, I noticed a familiar car, a silver Honda Civic with a cracked windshield. Clara stepped out. She froze when she saw me. Her eyes flicked to the truck beside me, the one with my logo A&B climate control, "We fix what's broken." For a second, she looked like she wanted to say something. But then her expression changed. She turned away, got back into her car, and drove off without a word. I watched her taillights fade into the distance. Later that night, Trevor texted me, "You ever think you'll forgive her?" I stared at the screen for a while before replying. I already did. Forgiving her doesn't mean letting her back in. It just means she doesn't own my peace anymore. It's been 2 months since that party. 2 months since I walked out of that apartment and decided I was done being small. Now, when people ask what I do, I tell them I fix what's broken. They usually think I'm talking about machines. But I know better. Sometimes the thing you fix isn't a system or a motor. Sometimes it's yourself. The first real winter storm hit early that year. Wind howled through the streets like it had a grudge, and I was standing on a ladder outside a small law office trying to coax an aging heat pump back to life. The kind of job that left your fingers numb and your soul strangely satisfied. When the system finally kicked on with a low hum, the building's owner, a woman in her 60s, stepped out with 2 steaming cups of coffee. "You're a miracle worker," she said. "How much do I owe you?" I smiled. Let's see if it still works in an hour before we celebrate. She laughed. You must love what you do. I thought about that for a second. A year ago, I'd have shrugged and said it pays the bills. Now I said, yeah, I do. That night back in my apartment, I looked around and barely recognized the place. The soft pastel curtains were gone. So were the quotes on the walls, the live laugh love signs, the piles of decorative pillows that served no purpose. In their place were shelves lined with tools, blueprints, and one framed business license that I'd printed myself. The apartment finally felt like it belonged to someone real. I'd also lost 10 pounds, not because of any diet, but because I no longer had to sit through Clara's meticulously plated dinners where everything had a garnish, but nothing tasted like food. I still caught myself expecting her to text sometimes. That phantom echo you get after a long, toxic routine finally ends. But the silence that followed wasn't empty, it was clean. One morning I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address. It wasn't from Clara, though. It was from Megan. Hey, Adam. Just wanted to thank you again. The clinic's new system works perfectly. My boyfriend said you're the best contractor he's ever worked with. If you ever need a testimonial, just say the word. At the bottom, she added a line that made me pause. You probably don't realize this, but you helped more than just yourself that night. You reminded a lot of us what self-respect actually looks like. I folded the letter and left it on my desk. That one sentence stayed with me for days. Business picked up faster than I expected. By the end of the month, I had 6 steady contracts and was booked 3 weeks ahead. I hired a kid fresh out of trade school, Eli. He was 19, eager, and reminded me a lot of myself before I let someone convince me ambition was embarrassing. The first day he asked, "What's the story behind your company name, A and B?" I smiled. It started as a joke. Someone once told me I was a loser. So I built something better. The B stands for that better than. He laughed. That's actually kind of awesome. Yeah, I said, tightening a bolt. It grew on me. Eli turned out to be a fast learner. He didn't just want to fix machines, he wanted to understand how they breathed. I taught him how to listen for the sound of a failing motor, the soft whining just before it burns out. He told me I sounded like I was describing people. Maybe I was. One afternoon, while I was finishing a job, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Against my better judgment, I answered. Adam, it's Clara's mom. I sighed quietly. Hi, Diane. She's struggling, she said. She got fired from another job. Retail this time. Keeps posting those motivational quotes online pretending she's fine, but she's not. I'm worried she might do something stupid. I'm sorry to hear that I said, but I can't help her, Diane. I know, she said softly. I just thought you should know she finally admitted it everything. Miami, the lies, the money, the way she treated you. She said she didn't realize what she had until she lost it. I closed my eyes. She realized too late. Yes, Diane agreed, but I wanted you to hear it from me. You were a good man to her, Adam. I hope you're doing well. I am, I said, better than I've been in years. That night I sat on my couch and thought about what she said. Not with anger anymore or bitterness, just reflection. For a long time, I'd believed that losing someone meant failure, that walking away meant weakness. But standing there, looking around the apartment I'd rebuilt from ashes, I realized something important. Sometimes letting go is the most ambitious thing you can do. A few days later, I ran into Kelly, the restaurant owner's wife, at a grocery store. She recognized me instantly. Adam, you're the guy from the video, she said, laughing. The one who just walked out like a legend. I chuckled. That's one way to describe it. No, really, she said. Everyone was talking about it for weeks. You know what people said? That it was the calmest revenge anyone had ever seen. You didn't yell, you didn't break anything, you just left. That's power. I didn't feel powerful, I admitted. I felt empty. Empty's the first step to free, she said, tossing a bag of apples into her cart. You filled it back up, didn't you? Yeah, I said, I did. A week later, I saw Clara again. It was early evening, a gas station on the outskirts of town. I was refueling my truck when I noticed a familiar figure by the air pump, a woman in a worn jacket, her hair tied back, eyes sunken with exhaustion. It took me a moment to realize it was her. She looked over startled, then froze when she saw the truck logo A&B Climate Control, We Fix What's Broken. For a second, I thought she might approach, but then she dropped her gaze, got into her old Civic, and drove away without saying a word. I watched the taillights fade. I didn't feel angry or smug, just sad for her and grateful for myself. When I got home, Trevor called. "You won't believe this," he said. "Your story's still making rounds online. Some Reddit page turned it into a discussion about self-worth." I laughed. "Guess I'm internet famous now?" "Hey," he said, "you regret any of it?" I thought about it. The humiliation, the sleepless nights, the rebuilding. Then I said no. I regret staying as long as I did, but not walking away. Trevor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You might not be a loser after all." "Thanks," I said with a smile. Took long enough to prove it. That night, as I closed up my books, I noticed the last line on my business invoice template: "We fix what's broken." It had started as marketing something catchy to put under my logo, but now it felt like truth. Because I had fixed something, not just machines, not just a business, myself. And that kind of repair doesn't break again easily. Spring came quietly. No drama, no calls, no ghosts from the past, just sunlight and work. My company, A&B Climate Control, was finally stable. I had 2 trucks, 1 employee, and a waiting list of clients. One morning, Eli asked, "Do you ever think about her?" "Sometimes," I said, "but not the way you think." He tilted his head. "You don't want her to see how successful you got." I smiled. "No, I want her to see nothing. That's peace." Later that week, the mother of a client offered me coffee while I fixed her heater. "You must love what you do," she said. "I do," I replied. "It's honest." That night, I thought about how strange life is, how the same man someone once called worthless could build something solid from the rubble she left behind. A few days later, Diane called again. Clara's mother. "Adam," she said softly. She finally told the truth about everything. Miami, the party, the lies. She said you didn't deserve any of it. I didn't know what to say. "She's moving away," Diane continued. "Trying to start over. I wanted you to know that you were right to walk away." "I don't need to be right," I said. "Just free." She paused. "You sound happy." "I am." That night, I wrote something in my notebook. Sometimes the best revenge isn't success. It's peace. I meant it. Because success still keeps you tied to them like you're proving something. But peace, that's freedom. A week later, I passed a billboard for a local trade school. It said, "Build what lasts." I smiled. That was it. That's what I'd done. I didn't just fix machines or start a business. I fixed myself. And this time, no one could take that away. 2 months after it all began, life finally felt simple again. The kind of simple that doesn't need defending. The business was steady, Eli was learning fast, and for the first time I was planning ahead instead of just surviving. One afternoon, while driving between jobs, I stopped at a red light and saw a car pull up beside me, a worn silver Civic with a cracked windshield. Clara. For a second, our eyes met. No anger, no regret. Just 2 people who'd both learned the hard way that respect can't be begged for, it has to be earned. She looked at my truck at the logo on the door, A&B Climate Control, "We fix what's broken." Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but she didn't. The light turned green, and she drove off. I didn't follow. That night, I sat on my porch watching the last light fade from the sky. The city hummed quietly below, and I realized something. I wasn't the man she tried to destroy. I was the man who walked away and built something better. Not to prove her wrong, to prove myself right. I whispered to the wind, half smiling. She was right. I was a loser, just not the kind she thought. Because losing her wasn't failure, it was freedom. And peace, quiet, earned honest peace, was the best thing I'd ever built. Here's the next story. My name's Daniel. I'm 31, and until a week ago, I thought my life was ordinary. Steady job, small mortgage, 4-year marriage to a woman I trusted completely. Her name is Rachel, 29, bright social, always posting smiling selfies that made our life look picture perfect. But I've learned that photos lie just as easily as people do. It started on a Thursday morning when I got an alert from my credit monitoring app, "New account detected under your name." I frowned because I hadn't applied for anything new. At first, I brushed it off as a clerical error. Then curiosity pulled me to check my credit report. There it was, a shiny new credit card opened 6 months ago with a balance already in the 5 figures. My first thought was scammer. Some stranger must have stolen my identity. I called the credit card company right away. The customer service rep read back my home address. Our house, but the email and phone on file weren't mine. She said the payments were being made regularly, so the account wasn't flagged for fraud. Minimum payments every month on time. My stomach twisted. Whoever had opened this account wasn't a careless thief. They were maintaining it. Quietly, I asked for copies of the statements. When they arrived in my inbox an hour later, I felt the blood drain from my face. The charges weren't random. They painted a story. Hotel rooms in nearby cities, dinners for two at restaurants Rachel had mentioned before. Uber rides, coffee shops, little purchases that matched her daily routine almost perfectly. I didn't want to believe it. For a few hours, I tried to convince myself there was another explanation. Maybe someone at her job was stealing her habits, copying her life online somehow. But the timing was too precise. The hotel stays matched the weekends she'd told me she was visiting her sister. Even the morning lattes were time-stamped right before she left for those trips. By noon, denial had collapsed. I printed every statement, highlighted the dates, drew circles around the hotels. $10,000 in 6 months. I froze my credit immediately and filed an initial fraud alert with the bureaus. Then I sat in my office staring at the printed pages, the neon highlights glowing under the lamp. The woman I'd built a home with had used my name like a credit line. When I got home that evening, she was cooking pasta, humming like always. She greeted me with a kiss and asked about my day. I couldn't even answer. My mind kept repeating, "Say it. Ask her. End this lie." Something weird happened. I began carefully. There's a credit card opened under my name. I already froze it and called the bank. Rachel turned around slowly. Her expression was pure shock, almost theatrical. "That's horrible identity theft." "Oh my God, are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, watching her too closely. "The bills were mailed here, though. Strange, right?" She blinked. Maybe the thief used our address to make it look legit. Maybe. I slid the stack of statements across the counter. "You ever stay at the Parkview Hotel in Riverton?" Her face went blank for a heartbeat before the performance resumed. "No." "Why?" "Because whoever stole my identity really likes that place. They were there the same weekend you were supposed to be at your sister's in Ashbury." Her voice faltered. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything," I said quietly. "I'm stating facts. The card's email and phone aren't mine. Maybe you want to check your phone." She tried to keep her tone calm, but her fingers trembled. "Daniel, I swear I don't know what this is. We can figure it out together." I nodded slowly. "That's good, because tomorrow I'm filing a police report." It was like I'd flipped a switch. Her shoulders locked, her breath hitched, and for the first time she couldn't look me in the eye. The silence stretched long enough for me to hear the refrigerator humming. "Anything you want to tell me before I make that call?" I asked. Her lips parted, but no sound came. When she finally spoke, it was a whisper. "My card was maxed out. I just needed something temporary. I used your name to open another one. I was going to pay it back." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Temporary. You spent $10,000 in 6 months on hotels and restaurants. You think I'm stupid?" Tears welled instantly. "Please, it's not what it looks like." "Then tell me what it is." She folded. "It was a mistake. I met someone through work. It was stupid. I ended it already." I held up a hand. "Stop. Don't insult me with details. You stole from me. You lied about where you were. You made me finance your affair." "I didn't mean to hurt you," she sobbed. "That's the thing about betrayal," I said. "You never mean it until you're caught." She reached for me, grabbing my hand, her mascara streaking. "Please, Daniel, we can fix this. I'll pay it all back. I'll do anything, just don't call the police." I pulled my hand free. "You made a legal mess. You'll get a legal solution." Her eyes widened. "You'd ruin my life over this." I shook my head. "You already did that yourself." That night I packed a duffel bag and locked myself in the guest room. The house was too quiet. I heard her crying through the wall, whispering apologies that felt small against the noise in my head. I lay awake until sunrise, staring at the ceiling fan, wondering when the woman I married had vanished. The next morning I left before she woke. I drove across town to my brother's apartment. When he opened the door, one look told him everything. "You can stay as long as you need," he said, handing me a spare key. From his couch, I called the police and filed an official report. The officer listened patiently as I explained how the card had been opened, how the charges matched my wife's movements. He didn't sound surprised. "It happens more than people think," he said. "Marriage doesn't protect you from fraud." When I hung up, I called a lawyer. He advised me to separate finances immediately and start divorce paperwork. He used words like identity theft, marital liability, and financial exposure. They sounded clinical, but behind every one of them was a scar. That evening, I sent Rachel one final text. "The report's filed. All communication goes through my lawyer." She responded with paragraph after paragraph crying emojis, long explanations, promises to make it right. I didn't reply. For the first time in our marriage, silence felt honest. I looked out my brother's window at the evening traffic, red lights stretching like veins through the city. Somewhere out there, she was probably staring at the same kind of light, realizing the story she'd built was collapsing. Tomorrow, I'd sign the first papers that would start dismantling the rest of it. And somewhere deep beneath the anger and exhaustion, a strange calm was forming. Not peace, not yet, but the kind of steady quiet that comes after a storm when you finally stop pretending the house isn't flooding. When I filed the report, I thought the hardest part was over. I was wrong. The paperwork was only the start. What came next was the social explosion, the fallout that happens when a private betrayal becomes public. Within 24 hours, word spread through our small circle of friends and family. Rachel must have started damage control early because by the weekend, half the people we knew thought I was overreacting. Some even suggested I should forgive her, as if credit card fraud and adultery were minor communication issues. Her sister Hannah called first. She didn't even say hello. "You're destroying her life!" "Daniel," she shouted. "She made a mistake. People make mistakes." I took a deep breath. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, Hannah. Not opening a credit card in someone's name and spending 10 grand on hotel rooms." She was under pressure. "You know how stressed she's been." "Stressed enough to commit fraud," I interrupted, "and to use you as a cover story while she was at those hotels." That stopped her cold for a second. Then she said something I'll never forget. I'd still forgive her. "That's what love is." "No," I said quietly. "Love doesn't mean letting someone burn your house down just because they say they're cold." I hung up. Rachel's mother tried a softer approach. She texted me a long message about ups and downs in marriage and how couples should work together through hardship. She even suggested we go to counseling. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed one line back. "If hardship means identity theft and lies, then I'll pass." I never heard from her again. Meanwhile, the police took things seriously. They confirmed that yes, even between spouses, opening a credit line in someone else's name counts as identity theft. The investigator thanked me for being organized. I had all the documents printed, sorted, color-coded. That part of me, the one that loved order, had found comfort in documentation. Rachel was called in for questioning. My lawyer said she showed up nervous but calm. She didn't deny it. She admitted she'd opened the account and used my name but tried to frame it as a financial misunderstanding. The detective wasn't buying it. Legally, it was clear she'd committed fraud. Emotionally, though, she kept trying to twist the story. She texted me constantly, sometimes crying, sometimes furious. "You're ruining me. We can fix this privately. Please just drop it. I'll pay it back. You're heartless." Every message ended the same way, begging for control. I didn't reply. A week later, I met with my lawyer again. He drafted the divorce papers and recommended I serve her as soon as possible. "She's desperate," he said. "People in that state can make reckless financial moves. You need to lock things down before she tries to shift debts or drain joint accounts." We filed the papers that afternoon. I thought I'd feel relief, but instead I felt hollow, like someone had turned down the volume on everything. That night I stayed up late scrolling through old photos on my phone. There was one from our anniversary, Rachel smiling across a candle-lit table holding my hand. At the time, I thought she looked grateful. Now I realized it was guilt. It's strange how memory changes once you know the ending. Over the next few days, more people reached out. Most offered support, but a few, mostly her friends, were quick to blame me. One mutual friend, Jason, texted, "Man, you didn't have to get the cops involved. Could have handled this quietly." Quietly, I replied. "She committed fraud, Jason. Yeah, but come on, jail time. You're making it worse. I didn't make it worse, I wrote back. I just stopped hiding it. He never answered. The thing about truth is once it's out, it doesn't need defending. It just sits there cold, factual, unshakable. Rachel tried everything. She sent long apologies about being lost. She sent photos of us from better days. She even sent a recording of herself crying as if that would erase the evidence. But nothing could change the reality. $10,000 in my name, months of deception, and an affair funded by my credit. The police moved quickly. They officially charged her with identity theft, credit card fraud, and theft. My lawyer told me she'd likely avoid jail since it was her first offense, but she'd still face serious consequences. When Rachel found out, she called me for the first time since the report. Her voice shook. Daniel, please, I'll lose everything. I'll lose my job. You should have thought of that before you signed my name. She cried harder. I never meant for it to go this far. It always goes this far, I said. That's how lies work. They grow until someone cuts them down. I hung up before she could say more. In the weeks that followed, I learned something about people. They love a good drama until the truth gets uncomfortable. Some friends quietly unfriended me online. Others stopped returning my calls. Apparently, holding someone accountable made me vindictive. But I stopped caring. Every night when I checked my phone and saw no new messages from her, I felt a little lighter. I started sleeping better. My brother even joked, "You look like you just paid off a huge loan." In a way, I had a debt of lies. When the official notice came that Rachel had been served the divorce papers, I sat on my brother's couch staring at the document. It wasn't joy I felt, but something close, the first real sense of peace in months. The house, the car, the bank accounts, all of it would be sorted in court. The credit card balance would follow her, not me. My record would be clean. I texted my lawyer, "Thank you. This feels like the first step toward breathing again." He replied, "Good. Just remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint." I knew he was right. Healing isn't instant. It's quiet, boring, repetitive, like rebuilding your credit score 1 month at a time. But I also knew something else. There was no part of me left that wanted to fix Rachel. I didn't hate her anymore. I just wanted her gone out of my finances, out of my story, out of the version of me that had once believed love meant forgiveness at all costs. The next morning, I deleted the last photo I still had of her on my phone. I stared at the empty screen for a moment and said out loud, "That's it." Because for the first time in months, it really was. 3 months after that first credit alert, I woke up to silence that felt clean. No phone vibrating with threats or apologies, no lawyer emails waiting in red. Just quiet, the sound of a life finally resetting itself. The divorce was finalized that morning. My attorney called to confirm, his tone brisk and professional. "It's official, Daniel. You're no longer married, and the court agreed you're not liable for her debt. The fraudulent account stays under her name." I thanked him, hung up, and stared at the paperwork for a long time. The words felt unreal. Final decree of divorce. After everything she'd stolen, this was the one thing I was finally getting back my name. When the legal dust settled, the next chapter started without ceremony. The criminal case against Rachel had dragged for months, but eventually she took a plea deal. Probation instead of jail time. Full restitution, meaning she'd have to pay back every cent she spent using my identity, and the kicker, a felony on her record. The first time I heard that word attached to her, I didn't feel angry or vindictive, just sad. Because there was a time when I believed she was the best part of my life. Now she was a cautionary tale, someone who'd traded a marriage for a handful of hotel receipts. When news of her plea reached our old social circle, everyone reacted differently. The ones who'd called me cold or heartless went quiet. They didn't apologize, people rarely do, but their silence was enough. A few reached out with half-hearted messages like, "You did what you had to do, man." I didn't reply. The truth had already done the talking for me. Rachel, on the other hand, wasn't finished. A month after the plea, she texted me again from a new number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was short. "Can we talk?" I replied, "About what?" "Just meet me. Somewhere public." I thought about it for a while and finally said no. "Whatever you want to say it here." There was a long pause. Then the messages came in one after another like she'd been holding her breath for months. "I lost my job. My sister won't talk to me anymore. My mom barely lets me visit. I can't get approved for an apartment. I didn't reply at first. Then she sent one more. You ruined my life. That's when I finally answered. No, Rachel. You ruined your life the moment you decided to use mine to pay for yours. There was no response after that. I blocked the number. It wasn't anger, it was closure. Weeks later, I learned through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved back in with her mother working a minimum wage job she hated. She'd gone from traveling for work to begging for hours at a retail store. Some part of me pitied her, not because I missed her, but because I knew how hard it was to start over. But unlike me, she'd built her restart on ashes she made herself. With the case behind me, I started focusing on the small victories, rebuilding my credit, reorganizing my finances, and most importantly, remembering how to trust my own judgment again. I moved into a smaller apartment, nothing fancy, just quiet and clean. I got into the habit of cooking again, rediscovering the simple calm of eating alone without tension across the table. Freedom doesn't come all at once. It arrives in small, almost invisible ways, waking up without dread, sleeping through the night, not checking your phone for apologies that never mattered. One afternoon, while I was getting coffee near my office, I ran into Jason, one of those mutual friends who had ghosted me during the chaos. He looked awkward, holding his drink like it might shield him. Hey man, he said, heard everything got finalized. Yeah, I said evenly. He hesitated. Look, I shouldn't have judged. I didn't know how bad it was. It's fine, I said. People believe what they want to believe. He nodded. Still, you did the right thing. I shrugged. Doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. He laughed quietly. Guess not. We shook hands, and for the first time since the whole mess began, I didn't feel defensive. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Later that week, I went for a walk downtown just to clear my head. The sun was setting and the city lights were flickering on one by one, little reminders that the world moves forward no matter who stumbles. I passed by a store window and caught my reflection. I almost didn't recognize the man looking back, calmer, older maybe, but steady. For a long time, I thought justice would feel like revenge. It didn't. It felt like balance being restored, like breathing evenly again after months of choking. I realized then that I didn't hate Rachel. I didn't love her either. She had simply become a chapter in a story that had already ended. That night, sitting at my kitchen table, I pulled out my old credit card statement, the one that had started it all. The paper was creased from being handled too many times. I stared at the charges one last time, the rows of lies neatly itemized. Then I tore it in half, not out of anger, but gratitude. Because without that discovery, I might have spent years in a marriage built on deception. The paper crumpled easily. Lies always do when you stop feeding them. A few days later, I got an email from the detective who'd handled my case. Just one line. Restitution payment received. Case closed. I smiled. Not because of the money that was gone long ago in more ways than one, but because the final door had closed. I deleted the email, leaned back in my chair, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding since the day I found that fake account. For the first time in months, I felt completely, absolutely free. People always say revenge is sweet. I disagree. The sweetest thing in the world is peace, knowing you don't owe anyone anything. Not money, not forgiveness, not explanations. I didn't destroy Rachel. She destroyed herself. All I did was stop covering for her. And if there's one thing I've learned through it all, it's this. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone, but that's still better than living beside someone who turns your name into a lie. I turned off the light, looked out the window, and whispered to the quiet city below. I'm finally free. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.